Hi, everybody. This is Claas Ehlers. This is Claas in 60 Seconds live on Facebook, where we take about 25 minutes to have very interesting conversations and look at some of the key issues around family promise, around family homelessness. As the CEO of Family Promise, I had an organization that is the largest organization addressing the issue of family homelessness. And today's topic is going to be affordable housing. My guest is Katrina Bostick from Family Promise of the Coastal Empire, doing incredible work there in Georgia. And we're going to take a look at some of the different dynamics of affordable housing. Affordable housing, of course, is at the core. It is at the center of family homelessness because that's essentially what is the cause, right? People do not have the income, the resources to be able to afford the housing. The reasons for the affordable housing crisis have many different factors in them, but ultimately we do not have enough housing that can be afforded by people. There are millions of households that are rent burdened, that are spending more than 50% of their income on housing, which leaves them vulnerable, leaves them susceptible to eviction, to losing that housing. And we've really fallen behind on the creation of affordable housing for a number of factors, market factors being a big one. The crash of 2008 really stalled a lot of new housing development. And ever since then, any kind of jolts to the system tend to slow down the creation of housing development. Additionally, we have a lot of community factors that prevent affordable housing from being created, from being supported. We have a shortfall of vouchers, of subsidies for families so that they can get government support to be able to get that housing. And of course, we all know the implications of not having enough affordable housing is increased homelessness, which has disastrous outcomes for the families directly affected, but for our society overall. So we're going to first just take a look at something that is in the news, which is the Build Back Better plan. And this is probably the most audacious government proposal around housing that we have seen, and perhaps one of our best shots to really significantly reduce, potentially even end homelessness within the foreseeable future. The framework of Build Back Better includes $150 billion in affordable housing provisions. It is the single largest, most comprehensive investment in affordable housing in this country's history. The funds will go towards building, preserving, improving more than 1 million affordable rental and single-family homes, including public housing plus rental and down payment assistance. Right? And one of the key aspects about affordable housing is that housing is necessary, obviously, for a place to live, right? For a roof over one's head. And as we like to say, the future begins at home, right? For children, you need to have a home. But housing is also the largest source of wealth in this country and the largest source of wealth transfer, which is part of the reason why there's such disparities in wealth between populations of color and white populations, because of that historical disparity in home ownership. Home ownership equates to wealth, equates to inheritable wealth. Some other points about the Build Back Better plan. The National Low-Income Housing Coalition notes $25 billion will go in rental assistance, critically important to keep people in housing, $65 billion for public housing infrastructure, and $15 billion for the National Housing Trust Fund, which would build and preserve over 150,000 units of low-income housing, and particularly for those who are very low AMI, those who are making 30% of the area median income. All of this is very exciting. Obviously, we have seen the sort of machinations and dance going on in Washington. We don't know exactly what's going to come out, but having so much positive housing legislation on the table is significant in and of itself. I think we're seeing a shift to understanding that housing truly is infrastructure, right? Homes are where jobs go at night. So if you want to talk about infrastructure, you want to talk about roads, you want to talk about jobs, you want to talk about bridges, none of that matters. People don't have homes. People don't have secure homes. And we're seeing this being exacerbated by the pandemic. Because of the eviction moratorium, we're able to keep a lot of households in housing, but we're also seeing real increases in rent, an average nationally of 10%, in some communities more than 20% rental increases just this year alone. The other element that we're seeing is individual investor landlords, mom and pop landlords, are starting to sell their units to owner-occupied, converting them from affordable rentals to owned homes. but cutting out of that proposition some of the lower income families that depend on those typical mom and pop landlords for a lot of affordable housing. So we see this crisis only getting worse. Um, I think all the more reason that we need to have actions like what's in the Build Back Better plan and things that I'm going to talk about at the end of the show as well to increase affordable housing and make sure that every family in this country can have a home. So with that, I'm going to segue to introduce my guest. Katrina Bostick is the Executive Director of Family Promise of the Coastal Empire. And the Coastal Empire is the name for the coastal area of the state of Georgia. Savannah, primarily is the most notable community, but Katrina orchestrated an incredible achievement a couple of years ago where she was able to create a merger, not just of the affiliate in Savannah, but the affiliate in Effingham County, which is a rural county to the north, and Bryant County, which is a suburban county for the most part, to the southwest, so that we actually have a large affiliate serving a very varied geography and very varied demographics. And that is, I think, an economy of scale and a testament to Katrina's vision and her ability to really maximize services. So with that, I would like to invite Katrina to join us. Hi, Katrina.
Hi, Claas. How are you?
I'm good. We're getting our first kind of cold snap. I'm out on my front porch here. Uh,
Okay.
we're getting our first cold snap. So I have my cup of tea and
Okay.
my jacket
Okay.
on.
Okay.
It's
Well, we have an
50 right now.
absolutely amazing fall day here in Savannah. So we're actually at a fall festival with one of our community partners, and I told him I needed to commandeer an office really quick so I could get on this live with you. So if you see anyone walking in and out, I'm using someone else's space, so I'll ask for forgiveness in advance.
Oh, always the way to do it, right? Never ask for permission. And I think that typifies our fantastic Family Promise executive directors. They never ask for permission.
We don't.
They ask for
We typically
forgiveness,
don't.
maybe. So
But they
my
can
first
keep up the
question,
job.
my first question, Katrina, is talk about Family Promise of the Coastal Empire's overall approach and some of your programs, right? What are the actions you are taking to address family homelessness in your part of Georgia?
So I think for the last couple of years, well before the pandemic, we were really looking at ways to prevent families from having to enter our short-term housing program. Of course, we love the Interfaith Hospitality Network. We want to be able to connect with our congregations and connect our families to that human capital that they so very well need during their time of crisis. But we saw just through research and through what worked better for our families is if we could definitely find a way to prevent them from even having to come through our doorstep. So we looked at prevention opportunities as well as diversion programs to really be able to help families stay stabilized. Prevention would be providing them with financial assistance for rent and utilities, because we know and research has definitely shown that it costs 3 times more to rehouse a family to keep than to keep a family housed. So for the last couple of years in Chatham County, that was really our biggest focus. How could we prevent families from becoming homeless? And upon the merger, we wanted to make sure that the same type of programming that was happening in Chatham was able to happen in our more rural communities of Bryan and Effingham. And with that merger, we were really able to stretch and expand our funding to be able to offer those same type of programs in Effingham and Bryan County. So with the onset of COVID, we did see that there was a huge influx of dollars that came into Chatham County, but our two rural counties did not see the same type of monies come into those communities. So through our Help Us Move In program, through Family Promise and Help Us Move In, our HUME grant, we're able to provide prevention dollars to both Bryan and Effingham counties to assist those families with definitely staying housed during their time of crisis. So we always will definitely have our short-term housing program, our Interfaith Hospitality Network program. We currently now have static locations across all 3 communities, looking at if the possibility of us doing the rotation and what we could do and how that we would be able to do that in a safe and healthy way. And then our prevention and diversion programs, where we are looking at wrapping services around families that may need housing, but the need is not as immediate. So working with them while they may be residing with a family member or a friend, and then looking at how we can transition them into something a little bit more permanent.
Fantastic. No, I agree. I mean, that's been our national focus is um, we've always done a fantastic job with shelter, and as long as shelter is needed, we'll continue to do that. But if we can keep people in their housing,
Yep.
or we can divert them from shelter into a workable solution, we can continue to provide them the services, empower them on a pathway to long-term sustainability, and avoid the trauma and disruption
That's right.
homelessness. That's the goal. And I'll just quickly, for people who are not familiar, HUME, Help Us Move In, is one of our partners, a fantastic foundation in the state of Washington that has done a lot of work to underwrite prevention and stabilization programs for affiliates across the country. One of our many wonderful partners, another of which is Clayton Homes. I was just in Alabama last week. They donated their 10th home to us, and they've helped underwrite the Future Begins at Home program as well.
Yes.
There's other synchrony. There's other. I have to be careful now because we have a lot of great partners, and I'll have left them out. But
Yes.
so my next question for you, Katrina, I started by talking about Build Back Better, about some of the proposals around affordable housing. So can you talk to how, if that legislation all passes, and of course, there's a lot of detail that needs to be figured out, but broadly, how could that impact families and family homelessness in Savannah and the surrounding counties?
Um, this would definitely open the door for the families that we serve to actually be able to uh, connect to housing that they can actually afford,
Mhm.
and or look at the possibility of home ownership. One of the programs that we just recently launched, where we did a full rehab on a house, and we're using that house for transitional housing. We have 2 additional units that we're using for transitional housing, was designed for that purpose. How can we take a family that was formerly homeless and segue them into home ownership? So our transitional housing program gives them the opportunity to actually look at the steps that need to be made to become a homeowner, connecting them to our community partners, such as Habitat for Humanity, the Community Housing Associates Services Agency, which is a nonprofit connected to the city of Savannah. So looking at different types of programs that are throughout this nation, NACA, things of that nature, where we can connect families to down payments, assistance with down payments and things of that nature. So this legislation would definitely open the door for more of our families to be able to get into affordable housing that's under 50%. I can tell you, in the city of Savannah, our families are paying upward to 70% of their income
Mhm.
for
Mhm.
housing, and also in our Bryant and Effingham counties as well. So because they are always paying such an exorbitant amount of their income is going towards housing, they typically stay in crisis, because if they miss 1 or 2 days of pay period, that could potentially lead them to another episode of homelessness. So our families are, definitely living constantly, day by day, on the edge. So to be able to alleviate a lot of that stress when it comes to the amount that they're paying towards rent, I definitely think it would change the trajectory of their family, and really just of their health, their mental health, their physical health, because that type of pressure on a family, on an adult, oftentimes a single adult, to carry that burden of, really having to maintain a household in low income, with low income, it becomes extremely stressful. And that's why a lot of the families that we end up that we are working with, they are depressed, they are, suffering from anxiety because of the stress of living, really paycheck to paycheck.
Mhm. Right. I mean, if every decision you have to make is a question of viability,
Yes.
right? I think when we talk about when we talk about what our aspiration is for families, it's not just to have them housed, it is to create a separation between poverty and their lives so that
Right.
they could make decisions about enrichment, about opportunity, about relaxation, not about
Mhm.
survival. And let
Yes.
me ask you, and I don't know if you have this stat. Have you seen? Do you know what like the average rental increase this year is in Savannah? And are you seeing a real shortage of an even worse shortage of affordable housing in your community these days?
Oh, definitely. What we've seen across all three counties is definitely a migration from individuals that have been coming from the north, the northeast, that are migrating to our community. They're buying up the property. Just as you stated earlier, those mom and pop homes that typically our families would definitely connect to when it came to renting out houses, they're now upselling those properties to individuals that are now coming into our community. They're relocating into our community and they're selling those properties $10,000, $20,000 over the asking price.
Mm-hmm.
So for those sellers, this is a prime, market for them to be able to capitalize and gain some additional income. But the change and the shift that it makes on our families that are living in poverty, they really have no recourse and they have extremely limited options. I do know, as far as rental rates, we've seen rental rates increase about 25% in our
Wow.
community.
Wow.
So, for a house that it would typically rent for $700 is now at 11, 13, up to 1,300. So it's really changed the way that our families are able to connect. Pre-COVID, we had about a 32-day stay in our short-term housing program. Right now, we're having to house families over 90 days because of this, because we're not able to connect to housing the way that we did in the past. And, families just don't have the resources.
I mean, again, it speaks to why prevention is such a critical approach within our. And again, we want to be holistic. We want to be offering a range of services so that any people that come to us in need, we're able to identify their pathway. So the last question before we talk about, we do a little roadshow for your amazing affiliate.
Okay.
What are the things what are you working on for 2022? What are some of your goals and projects that you're looking to bring about in 2022 and beyond?
So, the first major goal that we're definitely looking at for 2022 is establishing another static location in our Bryant County area. Um, Bryan County is the only county in this nation that is actually split. And it's like a 50-mile difference between the Richmond Hill area and the Pembroke area.
Mm-hmm.
So we are looking to establish an actual footprint in that Pembroke area so that we can serve that more rural community. And that community is also the more impoverished community. So we want to make sure that we're actually serving the entire Bryan County community. And then we're also looking at how we can expand our services into Liberty County, which would be a fourth county that's really right in our back door, and
Mm-hmm.
it has a huge need. Their need is very similar to the need that's in Chatham County, and they don't have any shelters. They do have minimal prevention in that community. It does have a military base, so a lot of that community, those resources are surrounded and really dedicated to the military. So
Mm-hmm.
for our families that fall outside of that demographic, that fall right on the poverty line, they find themselves having to come to Bryan County or Chatham County or Effingham County for resources because of the limited resources in their community. So for us, we wanted to look at how we could keep families right in their communities where they have support to be able to continue to grow and thrive. So for 2022, we're just looking at how we can continue to take a holistic approach to ending family homelessness and doing it from a regional perspective.
And that is amazing, Katrina. And yet just for Bryant County, the clarification on that, Bryant County has a military base in it, in the middle of it, so you cannot drive from
Cannot.
Pembroke in the north to Richmond Hill in the south and
That's
stay in the
right.
county. It is a
You cannot.
very unusual dynamic. So,
Extremely.
so we're going to do a little slideshow, and I'm going to ask you, Katrina, just talk about, if you could talk about the dynamics of affordable housing in each one of those communities.
Sure.
Sort of what are the commonalities and what might be some of the unique elements for each one. And so Mitch is going to make the magic happen. We'll see
Okay.
some images come up. All right, that is Chatham County, right?
That is Chatham County, downtown on one of the squares. Not sure what square that is. It looks like it may be Bull Street, um, right off Bull Street. So, um, that community, downtown Savannah, is definitely a huge historic and tourism destination. So, the housing market there is extremely high, and it's definitely a space where the families we serve, they actually work in that space, but it's not a space that they're able to live in. One of the things, and I just had one of my moms reach out to me, and she said, I'm working downtown, but I'm paying $20 a day just to be able to park my car. So to have to do that every day, now that eats at her funds. And, she's extremely nervous because do I have enough to continue to put food on my table? Do I have enough to continue to pay my rent? So families that are working downtown, they oftentimes have a situation to where that parking, it becomes a barrier for them. But the downtown area is not a place where our families typically reside.
And being a tourist city, the tourist industry, first of all, is obviously very subject to the pandemic, things like
Yes.
that. So you have a lot of economic hardship, and it is typically an inconsistent. So you're not your income is not always consistent. You often don't have health care, and also I'm sure things like Airbnbs encourage a lot of people to have multiple properties that they are
Yes.
not renting out. So
Yes.
so that's the story of Chatham County. I think we're going to move to Effingham County next. So Mitch is going to put up an image, and you can talk a little bit about what you see in Effingham County.
So that is our FP house, our Family Promise House in Effingham. That is our static location, and our families are actually residing in that house. We have our overnight host with our congregations, as well as staff that are there to work with families, guide them, help them, show them that hospitality that they need as they go through their crisis. We're able to host up to 4 families in that space. Um, Absolutely love this space. It's huge, and it really screams home to our families when they're able to come there. And that's what we want. We want our families to feel at home while they're, going through an episode of crisis. So that once they get into their own space, they value that space and they understand the importance of family, of community, and how the two can work hand in hand.
Yeah, and I think with Effingham County being a much more rural place, you have a lot less housing stock. It may be
Hmm.
cheaper in some ways, but with less stock and with families that probably are less interested in being in Savannah, wanting to stay in their communities. That's what I've seen in rural communities across
Yeah,
the country. So we're going to move on to Bryant County
sure.
next. So let's see what image Mitch comes up for this one.
Okay. Oh, wow. That looks like that is the North Bryan area, which is a more rural community. Lots of land, but not a lot of housing.
And not a
So,
lot of employment, I'm
and
guessing.
not a lot of employment.
Yeah.
Two huge barriers that we face in Bryan and Effingham is the lack of public transportation.
Mm-hmm.
So, for families that want to continue to reside in those communities, it's how do we get back and forth to work? How do we get back and forth to the grocery store? How do we, the doctor's appointments and things of that nature? So, we really have to oftentimes do a balancing act for families to determine what would be the most viable community for families to live in, especially if they lack transportation.
Yeah, and in those communities, if you are at risk of losing your car or your house, you're probably better off losing your house because once you lose your car,
Right?
you can lose your house anyway.
That's right.
Katrina, thank you so much. This was true. It was great to have you on. You're doing amazing work.
Thank
Your
you.
model of merger is something that we've worked with some other affiliates on, and
Yes.
how do you, it's not always the best thing to do, but in your case, it absolutely was, and it's a great model for others that want to do that. So
Yes.
keep doing the awesome work. I'm sorry all those Yankees are buying up all your property down there. But
It's okay. It's all love. We welcome them, and they just kind of have to get acclimated to the way we do things down south.
Have a great weekend, Katrina. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Claas.
All right, so we're going to close up here. I want to talk about what I think are sort of 7 key elements about affordable housing, things that we can actually do to address the affordable housing crisis. So we're gonna put them up on the screen. I'm gonna just talk about them real quickly. So the first one has to do with zoning and building requirements. This is inclusive zoning as opposed to exclusive zoning. In so many communities, and this is really prevalent in New Jersey, you have restrictions against the size of lots and the size of houses on lots, and you can't build duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes, which effectively limits affordable housing, also limits who can live in communities. That's not a coincidental dynamic there. And building requirements as well, too. You often see a lot of environmental concerns about building, and those are legitimate and should be considered, but sometimes they're Trojan horses for just, we don't want those people living here. So I think we need to clarify building requirements, encourage the creation of new housing, and really look at density housing. If we can put 4 families on a lot where right now there's 1 McMansion, that is 4 affordable housing units as opposed to 1 unaffordable housing unit. Second one is providing inducements for the creation. So we have a lot of great new markets and all different kinds of stimulus that induces the creation of affordable housing. We need to do more of that. I think that's part of what Build Back Better will do as well. We need to incentivize builders to create housing that can be affordable. And we need to do this in all communities. We need to, one of the things that the work of Raj Shetty has shown and others is, if you can have people in opportunity neighborhoods and neighborhoods that have good schools, that have good quality of life, you are going to give them a better future. It's just de facto. And so we want to make sure affordable housing is in all communities. Number 3 is infill. A lot of different ways to do infill, a lot of conversion of existing buildings you can do. Land banks are a great thing that cities have that allows them to reclaim housing. We've all driven through neighborhoods where you see a fair amount of abandoned homes, and the question is obvious: why can't people live in those homes? Well, you need to have jurisdiction, you need to have some money on that, you need to have public will to refurbish those houses, rehab those homes, and turn them into affordable units. So that's a third element. Number 4 is manufactured housing. I've talked about Clayton earlier. 30% cheaper to build. It is the largest source of affordable housing without a subsidy in this country. Manufactured housing is what many of us think of as trailers and so on, but these are wonderful housing units. They are built in a factory and then brought out. And unfortunately, there's a lot of stigma against them, even though they are homes just like any other homes. And we're working on, we're supporting legislation that would take away some of those restrictions. Communities should encourage the use of manufactured housing because it is de facto more affordable housing. Okay, number 5, resident-driven home ownership, like community land trusts and other elements. The more that residents can control their housing, the more that it is likely to be affordable housing. This is, I think, critical. Ultimately, we want communities to control their destinies, and we want to make sure that everybody in the community can be involved in that, not just those that have the power and the wealth. Number 6 is equity issues. Every few weeks there's an article in a major publication about racial discrimination in assessments and what homes people are shown and so on. There's multiple studies that show people of color, with all other factors controlled and equivalent, getting fewer opportunities, getting higher interest rates, and so on. So we need to continue to address those issues to ensure that there is not inherent structural discrimination in our financing system around home ownership. And the last one, number 7, is some of what Katrina is doing, and so many of our affiliates are doing, is building those partnerships between the social service agencies and the landlords. It is an ecosystem. We are all in this together. It's not us and them. Landlords need tenants. Tenants need housing. Social service agencies need ways to get families into secure housing. It is good for society. It is good for the families, and it is good for the landlords. Building those partnerships ensures that many of these smaller landlords are struggling themselves. They get case management support for any families that are in crisis. They get volunteer support. It is a way to truly bring the community together to ensure that people are housed. So those are my 7 recommendations on addressing the affordable housing crisis. And I will close by, again, thanking Katrina for spending some time with us and making sure that affordable housing remains a top issue for every political discussion. If we are going to talk about infrastructure, we have got to talk about housing because, again, homes are where jobs go at night. So with that, I'm going to wish everybody a wonderful weekend. Thank you very much.